All right. Good evening and welcome. I'm Reverend G. I'm the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Community Church. I am so delighted that you chose to spend this evening with us. And I am even more delighted that Rabbi Goldman accepted our invite to talk about joy tonight. So here at the UU Community Church, we live from the heart. We are an inclusive, compassionate community. We work toward personal growth because we believe as within, so without. We work for social transformation, healing, and justice. And we love to bring inspiring programs like this one to you because we believe that together we can do what we cannot do alone. Also, we can bring these programs to you because of your generous donations. So if you can afford it, will you please consider contributing $1 or $2 or $3 or $100, whatever you can. Every contribution, little or big, matters, but most importantly, your attendance, your participation matters the most. So Miriam will share with you the ways in which you can donate. You can send a check. You can donate online. There's different ways. And then in the chat, if you would like, you can, we would love to know you a little bit better. So in the chat, maybe you can type in, how did you hear about tonight's event? What is it that inspired you to join in tonight? We would just love to know that about you. Okay, so let me introduce our rabbi. Rabbi Goldman, she's a teacher, a community organizer, and a social justice activist. She could be a UU as far as I'm concerned. Her favorite way to connect with other people and the divine is through song. Born and raised in Chicago, she enjoyed spending summers at Camp Tavor as a proud member of the Jewish youth movement Habonim Dror. She loves exploring the songs and stories of the Jewish people with groups of eager learners of all ages. Rabbi Goldman has lived in Israel 3 different times as a kibbutz volunteer after high school, as a Hebrew language learner and student of peace and justice, and as a rabbinical student and emerging Jewish professional. A graduate of Oberlin College, she was ordained in 2016 by the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College before arriving at the Congregation of Moses, where she serves currently. She was in conservative synagogues in Pennsylvania and Indiana. She lives in Kalamazoo with her lawfully wedded partner and 2 young sons, and a Goldman doodle. We just saw cute little Leo a moment ago. Whenever the love of dog is with us, it can be bad, right?
Right.
So, Rabbi Goldman, thank you so much for joining us. And I have the format is going to be extremely informal, really, tonight. I have a few questions that I will ask you. Hopefully, we will have a very lovely conversation. And then I will open it up for questions and comments for the attendees. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Rabbi, my understanding that the Hebrew word for joy, simcha, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Seems to carry a weight different from just happiness. So in Jewish thought, what is simcha? Is it an emotion? Is it a practice? Is it a choice? Or is it all 3?
Well, I wish you had sent me this beforehand. Wow, that's like a very deep question. I think it is all 3. I think it is all 3. So, as rabbis, we speak and think in stories and in texts. So, the different Jewish bodies of work. So the gray books that you see behind me, that's Talmud, both Hebrew and its English, or Hebrew Aramaic and its English translation and commentaries. And we also draw, we draw primarily from Bible, and then the next level is Talmud. And then the next level is Kabbalah, Hasidic thought. And there's a story in the Hasidic world about people who lived in Eastern Europe who lived really impoverished lives, and they were waiting for the Messiah to come, in a very religious Orthodox setting. So there, I have read stories of people, men, crying out to God, God, what is taking you so long? And there are also other stories that talk about um, in the depths of despair, um, you need to dance. You need to have simcha. And if you're having a community dance and there's someone who's standing outside the circle, and is not dancing, it's actually your responsibility to grab their hand and bring them in and have them dance until they get themselves to this place of joy. So you said, is it a choice? Is it an emotion? What was the other
Is it
word?
a practice, a
A
choice, or an
practice.
emotion?
So I think it's
Or
it
well,
it
all
is
three.
it is all three, right? So um but I think most consciously that story is illustrating that it is a choice and it also is a practice. So every single week we have Shabbat, and Shabbat is supposed to be a taste of the world to come. That another translation which I don't like very much is heaven. We say it's the world that's on her way. Um, and so you live in the world as it should be, not in the world as it is every single week. So you do your best to turn off that part of your brain that, is critical and upset. And you delight and you make joy for yourself and your community, family community.
Wow, that is very interesting to me. That if you consciously live in the world as it should be, how does that intersect with reality?
So only one day a week,
Only on Shabbat.
only on Shabbat. Yeah, 6 days
Okay,
a week, you live in the
okay,
world as it is.
I see what you're saying. So also I understand um, that on Shabbat is a total timeout. It is the world is just gonna go on without me. There's 6 days, and then there's 24 hours when the world does not need me. I can just unplug and live in the world as it should be. What would be a practice for the rest of us? Because we are just so connected constantly to our phones, our computers, the news, the things are just coming and coming and coming at us.
Mhm.
Um, what would be a good practice, in your opinion, for
Right.
us
Well,
Gentiles?
well, I think for all of us, if you can, um, I'm still working on this, but setting aside my phone entirely, just turning it off and pretend like it was 30 years ago. Um, and some shades of that. I mean, other practices that are meaningful for me are I don't spend money. Um, and so consciously I'm not like going grocery shopping, not like activity, tasks that could have happened beforehand. um I but I'm also I don't go to restaurants. That would be like a really nice thing to do, like luxurious. But there's an attempt to prepare everything you need beforehand, so that you can just be with your family and be with your friends, and be in the synagogue, be with community. It's a high bar, but so I think breaking it down and taking one practice, one piece of that, um, is
Baby
a
steps, baby
is a good
steps.
way to start. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Now, I've heard that in Judaism, experiencing joy, especially on holidays, is sometimes considered a mitzvah, like a commandment.
Mhm.
Um, to me, this is fascinating because how can joy be an obligation?
Mm,
Um, what does that practice teach us about accessing joy when it doesn't come naturally? And right now, especially, I'm thinking for me personally, and so for the rest of you from the congregation who are listening, this is news to you. But Kathy Hayes passed away today, and
mm,
I I am stunned. I I have such tremendous feels. Like I am just overwhelmed with feelings that I can't even match up with words. But joy would be the very last one
mhm.
that would come to me.
Right. Well, so those two things are in conflict, and actually, specifically around when someone has died, you're not you're not commanded to feel joy about that. I mean, and because Judaism really lives in wonder of what's going to happen next after we die, which is very different than many Christian traditions where I understand death is we're celebrating because someone is going to a better place. Within Jewish tradition, we have the full range of ideas. So there are Jewish thinkers who think that we're going to Olam Haba, we're going to the next world, and it's going to be pretty great. Um, but I think as a whole, we are not sure. And so we're not, when someone dies, we live in that sadness. Um, when a death happens right before a holiday, it is quite complicated. And so the community does their very, very best to take care of the family, and the family is not obligated to come and be in the synagogue and be part of the celebrations if that's not going to if they're not able to do that. But so there's sort of a separation that is made, and people are with, if everything works the way it should, people are with the family at home, and then the community is joyful at the synagogue. Yeah, I mean, I want you. Do you want to say more about your Kathy? You said Kathy.
Well, I personally loved her, and I know that we all very much cared for her. And she received a bad diagnosis fairly recently, and it just happened so fast, so fast. It's just I'm stunned, and I'm sure that the rest of us here who are just hearing, I just learned about it before I came on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm stunned, and I don't know. It's like my heart is like bleeding in so many different ways. It's just usually I'm not one to be lost for words,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gasping here. I'm just very raw.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, so what it's making me think of is actually the Jewish mourning rituals. I think offer quite a lot to the American system. I really do think that you brought me here to talk about joy, and I think that we do bring that as well. But also, even more, if you woke me up in the middle of the night and said, "What does Jewish practice have to offer to Americans?" And I would say that like really feeling the loss when someone dies in very regimented steps, it works, So in this moment where someone has died before there's a funeral or a memorial service, or before all of the family and friends have gathered from the four corners of the earth to be together, is a very quiet, contemplative time, and you're focused on the person and their life, and then you move through till after the funeral or memorial service. Then until that has completed, all the focus is on this person who has died in their life, and at that moment then there's a shift to comforting the people closest to them, and moving through, then there's a moment 30 days after the death to remember, um, saying a morning prayer, that we have a mourner's Kaddish for the mourners at every service. And people will say that for 11 months, and then they'll take a month off. And then on the anniversary of their death, every year, forever, people who are close to them remember them and light a candle. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think that I mean, it's beautiful.
You know, how would you know joy if you didn't know sorrow? It's the same way, how would you appreciate light if you didn't know darkness?
Right.
So, and I'm also, I've noticed that life always shows me what is it that we really need to talk about at any
Hmm.
given time.
Yeah.
So, and that's exactly that's the other thing, that what I want to understand, how in Jewish tradition you relationship with joy when so much around us is dark.
Mm-hmm.
So the days are short, there's darkness, there's coldness. The political environment is scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's who knows if it's hopeless or not, but it's definitely scary and very cruel. Very, very
Mm-hmm.
cruel.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you then get in touch with that mitzvah of joy?
Mm-hmm. Well, so you asked before, how can it joy be mandated on a holiday? How can it be commanded to be joyful? And I will tell you that until the last couple of years, I also really struggled with that. And I even had a very respected teacher whose wife died of breast cancer, and was left as a young father of four children. And many years later, probably 15 or 20 years later, is when I met him. And he had remarried, and everything was, things he had gone through the process, right? But when we were asked at the very beginning of rabbinical school, what is your favorite holiday? He said that he has a really tough time with Simchat Torah, joy in the Torah, which happens in the fall, and Purim, where we read the story of Esther, and it's a topsy-turvy carnival type holiday with drinking and revelry. Both of those are sort of the quintessential where you must be joyful. And he said, I don't like them because don't tell me to be joyful. Like, there things have been really hard. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, so it was somebody validating what I feel. And in the last couple of years, I still feel that, but I also like being joyful for what is. It's sort of like a gratitude practice of like, I don't need to feel the weight of the world every moment. I'm not going to forget how bad things are. I'm not, you know? And so my example this year we had the Great Lakes Brass Band, which is a local Kalamazoo band and New Orleans style jazz, brass band. And we had them come and play for Simchat Torah. The entire holiday is dancing in circles with the Torah. That's, there's other stuff, but that is the essence of the holiday. And I, made it a really big deal, had a band come in, and I just started dancing. And at that moment, before I started dancing, I felt tired, but said, we're gonna set it aside and we're just gonna dance. And my energy, the energy of the band and the energy of all the people, there were almost 100 people. It changed something for them, a Tuesday night in the middle of October, 2025. And it was like a gift and a rest from the awfulness.
So then, to bring you back to the simcha, would you say that a shared joy is more resilient than a solitary one? You
Shared.
mentioned that
Yes.
there's the one person who's standing outside the circle,
Uh-huh.
and then it is the people in the circle whose responsibility is to draw them in.
Hmm. Right. Yes, I mean, I think we need each other to fully celebrate. I mean, community. I'm reading, this is in the secular world, right? But all these maybe it was an Atlantic article or a New York Times article that was like, in the pandemic, we learned solitude and we need to unlearn it now. Like, like I'm an introvert. I do need my solitude. But we've sort of gone, we need each other. We need each other. So yes, I mean, I don't even in a Jewish context where you need 10 people, 10 adults to say certain prayers at certain times. It's like a minimum of 10 for to any of these simchas, any of these joys, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a bat mitzvah, a um, the celebration welcoming a new child. There's if you can swing it, 10 or more people. And it's the people who are celebrating who figure out and bring the food. And they are sharing their joy with the rest of the community by providing a meal. Like there's always a meal connected to each of the things that we're doing, holidays, family, personal celebrations, and the meal itself is part of the celebration.
Hmm. So feeding the body and the soul.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's this season is in the Jewish tradition the Hanukkah, and where you light a candle at a time. So you introduce light into this darkness.
Hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more and what it means personally to you and how you in your community live into it? Um, and especially how in this light bring light into this greater darkness where things feel so overwhelming.
Hmm.
Life is lifing. It just doesn't stop,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and it's that like into that lifing life. How do you introduce light and joy? And it seems like sometimes an act of resilience, but a commitment for sure.
Hmm. Yes, I mean, there are like specific tasks that need to be done. Setting up the candles, lighting the candles, and I think sometimes in the sea of despair and everything that's happening, just taking a concrete act helps. And so
Hmm.
I mean, Hanukkah is really the first Jewish holiday that I remember celebrating. Hanukkah and Passover, for sure. Um, and so I can't even imagine it not being joyful. Um, and I mean candles are magic too, right? So you light a candle, it changes the whole mood. That you gather around the menorah, and the first night there's two candles because you have the helper candle that lights the first candle.
Huh?
And there's just an excitement of you have this first candle, and then tomorrow night you're going to have two and three, and it builds, like it's fun. And I also, so as a child, my family had one menorah for the whole family. And it was a menorah that my parents got when they got married. So it's very special. Um, and then I learned much, much later that there's a tradition that every single member of the family has their own. And so that's what we have started to do. So we have four. And then occasionally someone will insist that Leo the dog gets one. So then
Huh?
we'll have five. And then if we have any guests over, we have extras for them to light. And so that's a lot of candles.
That's a lot of light.
Yes.
The time when I met you in person, I attended the Seder at
Yes.
uh, at the Congregation of Moses, and I had never been to one. I had no idea what it was about, and I tell you, the impression that it left me with. There you are. a people who has a very long history that is remembered, retold, relived every single year in community. And by golly, so much, I mean, you know, from the Old Testament times, life had been hard for the Jewish people. Then in modern times, it hasn't eased up at all. Then it was, top it with the Holocaust. And yet there you are, remembering your history consciously, step by step. Mm-hmm. Eat through the whole thing and still find your inner joy. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, that is the birthplace of resilience.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about Tikkun Olam. My dogs decided to play right now. Can you hear?
Oh no, I heard no, I can't.
Okay, good. I'm glad it doesn't pick it up because they're in the other room just going at it. Tell me about Tikkun Olam, which is repairing the world, yeah? Mm-hmm. So I think it can be draining. It can be infuriating. I mean, we all know what's going on around the world, our planet, all over. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of injustice and, like I said, cruelty. Like where cruelty is the point. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. Mm-hmm. Can joy fuel the work of justice? Like sometimes we tend to feel so overwhelmed with the heaviness of the world, we feel guilty about feeling joyful. Is that really a good strategy to feel guilty?
Right. Well, it's also a double-edged sword to be like, don't feel guilty.
Right.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I would say that I actually join you in that it's just a lot. And so that it's tough. It almost feels insurmountable. But then you're just breaking it down into the bite-sized steps, right? I mean, I was a community organizer before I became a rabbi. Both that was my part of my natural inclination. So I was organizing groups of people to do things before I even knew that term. And then I was, professionally trained as an organizer, and it's all about making the goal, designing the campaign, and figuring out the steps and getting there. So what's overwhelming right now is that, part of the point of authoritarianism is to hit you with so much that you're totally scrambled and you don't even know where to begin. So I will absolutely say that I have been caught in that. But first of all, recognizing that is the point helps to take a step out of that. And then this is also where community is really important, because you do your part and you trust that the other people in your community and in the larger world are doing their part. So if you decide what your one issue is, then you trust. It's also a trust exercise that somebody else is working on a different issue that is important to you.
Okay, well, I have a couple more questions. So, tikva, which is hope, if I understand it correctly, is different from optimism. And again, if I think back of that Seder that I attended, I got the impression that as a people you persevere without being naively optimist. That's the feeling I walked away with. So in your opinion, or in the Jewish understanding, what is the distinction between tikva, hope, and optimism. And how does a grounded hope sustain a durable joy?
Mm. And I have my dictionary on my phone, so I'm going to look up optimism in Hebrew, and it'll
Mm.
probably be something like optimisma. But we'll see. We'll see. Because I'm curious too. All right, let's see what it says. Ha! I was right.
Optimism.
The first one, optimism. Um, right. So it's oh, so the other way, the other thing it says though is a sentence. Lirot et hatov b'chol davar, which means to see the good in everything.
Mm,
So that's interesting. Um, I wonder if I don't know. I can't cite you Jewish thinkers on this specific topic, but
mhm,
I think we probably are in the realm of finding the silver lining or finding there's a famous Jewish text that says every bride is beautiful on her wedding day. And then it's, 2,000 years old men, rabbis being like, well, that's not true. There are women who are ugly. And another rabbi says, but on you find something, and it's such a joyful day that that this person has joy and excitement, and don't lie, but find something to compliment, and say to the bride she's beautiful and mean it. Um, and so I think maybe that is related. Um, yeah.
mhm. There was a rabbi whose name I don't remember, but he's quite famous, and he walked with Martin Luther King Jr. The bridge,
Hmm.
um, and he if I read about this some time ago, so I'm going to paraphrase. I don't remember the quote exactly, but he said something like, when he did that, his feet were praying,
Hmm. Hmm.
and and I'm thinking that that maybe joy is not just a it's both and it's a commitment to to stay hopeful and stay light in the face of darkness and fear. And then it's also an action.
Hmm.
It's, when he said his feet, oh my God, his feet were praying. I thought that was, just grasped me. I don't remember his name. I
Yeah,
wish I did.
he's Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel.
That's
So
the one. Yes.
one of the greats of the 20th
Yes.
century. Yes.
Yes.
And his personal story is even more powerful. He was saved from the Holocaust, was brought over to the United States, actually to Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati. They sort of, got some small number of visas and got the connected people out. Um, and he lost his entire family. Um, and so he went through, years of recovering from that, or what, dealing with that. And then he became a leader in the civil rights movement. And he easily made the connections of dehumanizing a group of people in your society. So that's how he comes to be marching with King. He also was a Hasidic rabbi, so he is steeped in the world of the stories like grab the person's hand and bring them into the dance. Like that is his world. And he also talks about um, you know, every angel or every blade of grass has an angel that whispers to it, grow, grow, grow. Um,
Yes.
I think that that might be both a Jewish statement and also in other wisdom traditions. But so for
Hmm.
him to talk about like the different parts of his body praying, like that is his realm that he yeah, that he would
Hmm.
be part of.
So, what didn't I ask you about that is yours to share?
Ah, so I did maybe this is my studious side, but I always want to have like source texts. So there is a foundational text. It's actually from Psalms that it says, Eve duet Hashem besimcha. So serve God in joy. So whenever you're doing a mitzvah, um, try to do it joyfully. So it's a great charge because a mitzvah literally is a commandment. So it's something that you have to do.
Hmm.
And sometimes you don't want to do things that you have to do. Um, and I also, um, so I shared with my congregation last week that I was going to be talking about this, or maybe even 2 weeks ago that I was going to be talking about this. And we do prayers for we do a prayer for the country, as in a prayer for the United States every week. And there's a line at the at, in near the end that says, "We do all of this, we hope so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land." And one of our venerable members said, what's implicit in that is that peace and security, happiness and freedom are already in the land. And we
Mm.
hope that they don't leave. It doesn't leave. And so I found that to be quite an optimistic statement of just remembering that underneath all of it, um, there is a basis, and that's what we're trying to protect.
Or there is a aspiration.
Hmm.
You know, to me, this country has never been perfect, but has always, I thought, aspired to be.
Hmm.
And now it's aspiring to be its worst iteration, its
Hmm.
worst iteration, which
Hmm.
is what the difference is for me.
Yes.
Because, I am certain that you can find groups of people who would say, was it peace and what?
Peace and security,
Peace and
happiness and
security,
freedom.
happiness and freedom probably has never been their reality.
Hmm.
Security, I mean, think about the trans community,
Hmm.
or think about the Native Americans. How
Hmm.
much of that have we allowed them? And how much of that have they been able to carve out for themselves? And there are, I obviously don't want to leave out groups of people, but there are groups of people for whom this has been an aspiration for for as long as this country has been.
Hmm.
But it's an aspiration that so many countries don't even have.
Right.
You know, don't even have. Yeah.
Right. And that's what the fight is over, is are we going to go the way of the other nations, or are we going to return
Mhm.
to our way, that what has made us such
Mhm.
a destination and such a great place. I mean, when you were at some point you were talking about you said something like naivete, and I thought, we always speak of ourselves, Jews in the United States, as living simultaneously in two different civilizations, at least. the Jewish civilization and the American civilization. I'm queer, so I also am part of the queer community. That's another, operating system that I am part of. Um, but I really do think that in the American system, part of what is so painful is that, as an American Jew, we've had 3 generations of just immense progress for much of our community. And so what is so painful right now is I thought this would always continue. Like there was never a thought
Mm,
in my mind that my life would be my life and my standing and my opportunities would be better than my parents and that was better than their parents and that would be true for my children. Um, and that is not the case.
that is not the case. Once I talked to a Jewish person, and it just hit me what they said. It was about how they make connections with the rest of us, and the thought, the question in their mind is always, would you hide me if the time would come?
Mm,
Would you hide me? That's their guiding awareness.
uh-huh. So that was
And
not
and
that
now that's spreading. Now that's spreading to other vulnerable groups.
right, right.
Mhm.
And I would say that that was not my guiding thought, but in 2018, when my family and I were living in Indianapolis and whatever was happening that just put me over the edge, I asked my neighbor, I said, "Will you hide us?" And he said, "Yes."
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, may we hide each other.
Yeah,
May
protect each
we be
other.
there,
Yeah.
protect each other, whatever it
Mhm.
takes.
Right. Yeah, and I also I am not currently living in Chicago. I have not lived there in 20 years, which is crazy
Mhm.
to me. But I
Mhm.
am still connected and to lots of people and my family is there and I have been very inspired by people that I know who are on the front lines and who have been uh, protecting their neighbors and being
Mhm.
part of the organizing to make sure that happens
Mhm.
as much
Mhm.
as as much as is possible.
Mhm. Mhm. The Alpha and the Omega, both end. It's not either or, it's both end always.
Hmm.
Yeah. Is there anything else I didn't ask you that wishes to come forward?
Um, I'll read one final piece. So this is the intellectual founder of the Jewish movement that I was trained in as a rabbi. I'm a mutt in that I really do have connections to the majority of the Jewish world. I was raised Reform. I work in conservative synagogues. I was trained as a Reconstructionist, and a very close friend became Orthodox. So I experienced that world with him and his family. Um, the founder of Reconstructionist Judaism, Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, uh, said this or wrote this at some point. The secret of the survival of Judaism in the face of successive challenges of Canaanite, Babylonian, Greek, Romanian, and Arabic civilizations is the fact that in all these epochs, the Jewish religion invested the sancta, the rituals of the Jewish people, with such universal ethical and spiritual significance that the issue involved was felt to be not only the saving of the Jewish people, but the saving of all that made life worth living.
Mm. It's beautiful. It's very deep. And I was listening to a podcast today, and it was about the founding fathers of this country.
Mm,
and how the dichotomy, how they were able to espouse principles that speak of freedom, speak of the intrinsic value and worthiness of every human being, and yet they were slave owners.
mhm, mhm,
And that was the one thing that they were willing to kick down. The can they were willing to kick down. Let somebody else deal with that.
mhm,
They maintained their slave ownership.
mhm,
So it's the same. This last sentence that struck me in that reading, that they wish that for everybody else, and yet look at the reality today
mhm. Yeah.
in that region of the world. Yeah.
Yes. Right. And, we speak now about that we are we are at an inflection point in the Jewish community that is a crisis that is more as serious as 2,000 years ago when the temple was destroyed, which was at the same time that Jesus lived and died. Um, and I really do. I feel honored to be a rabbi, and I feel I- if there was ever like a tinge of what is it, imposter syndrome, that like the Orthodox in Israel, they've got the real deal and I don't. At this moment, like it is, I no longer feel that ever. And I say, we have it right. And I have to teach my children this Judaism because
Mm-hmm.
this Judaism is the Judaism that I want to survive.
You feel justified,
Yeah.
for you have chosen the way of love, justice, compassion, and
Hmm.
inclusion.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for that. These are my questions. I am going to open it up um, for the participants. And I thank you so much. It's just so lovely, lovely, lovely. And I'll tell you the truth, I hunger for more conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and this has been just a lovely introduction. Thank you.
So
All
you
right.
can
Mhm.
open your microphones and turn on your video. And if you have any questions coming up for Rabbi Goldman, raise your hand and let us know. Barb, are you
And
ready to say something?
and yeah, and Miriam, we have a Jackie Blackwell who is in the waiting room. I don't know if you see that.
Oh, I did not see that. I'm sorry.
Should I admit her?
I have.
I did. Okay, thank you. All right,
Barb,
go
did you have
ahead.
a question or comment? Nope. Well, I want to ask about song. Uh,
Okay.
in your bio, song was lifted up and as your favorite way to connect with the divine. And I would think with joy as well, though song can bring up more than that. But do you want to speak to the relationship between song and joy in Judaism?
Right. Well, it definitely helps create joy. Um, it's similar to dancing, right? Dancing was the example I was using, but song, the arts, really help. Um, so part of my challenge that I was excited about when I became a rabbi, when I studied to become a rabbi, was to get facility with the Hebrew. And so we pray, the prayer book that we use here, just open to a random page, but one side of the page is Hebrew and the other side is the English translation. And then there are marginal notes. Um, and so now I have the ability to read and decipher, and if it's not a prayer that I've looked at a lot, I do need to study it. I can't just pick it up and read it But I connect to the prayers, to the lines that have music that set to it, and it's an ongoing project of there are musicians, every day, especially in our day, who are composing new melodies, and reading the prayers and lifting up different pieces that maybe nobody ever really noticed before, but then they set it to music and it gives it more weight. So that's it. It gives me a way in to the prayers that could be shrouded in mystery a little bit.
Yeah, music tends to be the vehicle, right? That just drives the meaning in to a deeper level that is just so hard to access with just words.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Judy Oliver, did you have a question?
Well, just some comments. Since moving to New Jersey, it's the first opportunity I've had for very much exposure to a Jewish community. And my neighbors here have been so welcoming and instructive. We have a woman who was liberated from a camp as a young girl. Um, but it has struck me as they've talked about joy. Joy has obviously been important, and that puzzled me for a long time. And I've come to the conclusion that joy is a practice of resiliency, not only in Judaism, but in the African American community.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can beat me, you can take away my XYZ, but you cannot destroy my joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so within the group, joy is a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes so much sense to me when you are carrying the
Mm-hmm.
weight of hundreds or thousands of years, when you, not as an individual, but you as part of a community, were under the express effort to wipe you out.
Um, Either today or yesterday, I had an epiphany. As you know, I grew up in communism, and that and it was bad. It was really, really bad. We had no freedom. We were watched. There was the secret police. It was scary. It was daunting. It was dark. It was hopeless. It was horrible. I don't have a single good thing to say about it. But then I thought, still, I remember that we had joy. Absolutely. We, the people, we'd come together, we'd have a good time. And there was something in us that kept us going and uplifted us. And then I thought, why is it that now I don't feel that? I don't feel that joy. It's authoritarianism. Obviously, I'm recognizing it. People, you can't fool me because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So you can't fool me. And I thought, why is it that I don't feel it now? And then I realized because it hasn't completely set in. So right now, we are still dealing with feelings of indignation, incredulity. I can't believe this is happening. Anger, absolute anger, revulsion. The way ICE is treating people, we are revolted by it. We are angry about it. But then once the bad sets in, which means it hasn't really set in here, that's when joy becomes an act of resistance. And that's how I experienced joy when I lived in communism. And then when I moved here, I experienced it as an act of liberation. Like the best thing that about communism for me was that it ended. And so then joy morphed for me. But I think joy is that life force that helps us get through.
So Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan also said, um, when asked to describe God, he wouldn't use the word God, and he says, um, God is the force that makes for salvation. So I think that that's what you just said. That it
Yes.
is that which is in us that is that can push on to our liberation, to our salvation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, Nikki. And you're muted right now. There you go.
Frankel said the people who survived the camps had hope.
Mm-hmm.
And it always bothered me because how do you know that? How do you know that the people who died didn't have hope? But the way you're discussing joy, I wonder if joy wasn't the magic. That if you take joy, and you have to experience joy if you practice, were the people in the camps practicing while they were there and have to have that joy, even though it was hidden. And so that was just a thought that I had. And also with this country, back in 2001, when they passed the Unpatriotic Act, my mother said it's happening in this country now because she experienced it in Austria.
Yeah. It's one small step at a time until it just becomes an avalanche. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? We have the rabbi here.
Well, I'll talk more about food. I always used to, I grew up in a Unitarian Universalist church that was led by a Jewish woman. And so it was very Jewitarian, as they used to call it. So we would celebrate Seder. And I always thought of it sort of as this edible Bible study that was part of the joy, to be able to taste these different foods and eat these different foods and think about the story as it was happening. Can you expand on the importance of food and joy?
So one of the another holiday that is chiefly associated with joy that we haven't already mentioned is Sukkot. So the Festival of Booths, also in the fall. It's the holiday that immediately precedes Simchat Torah. And what's curious about this holiday is that it doesn't have any mandated foods. So all of the other holidays seem to have foods that are connected to it. And I had a friend once who had me over. I mean, part of the holiday is inviting other people into your sukkah. So hospitality. And she said, "Come have some sukkah soup." And I said, "What's sukkah soup?" And she said, it's whatever soup you decide to make and serve in the sukkah." But so, and that has really stuck with me. And Sukkot is actually now overtaking Passover as my favorite holiday. Just because of how fun it is to build the sukkah and have a big party in the fall, and the point of it is also to celebrate the harvest, and I mean that really expansively. So it's a holiday of gratitude, um, and this year especially, just so grateful for taking a moment to see through the lens of what we have as opposed to what we're fighting.
Which brings me to a question that I had. Do you see a relationship between gratitude and joy? Is it hakarat hatov? Do you see a relationship, and how important is that? And is there a practice that you can point us to for gratitude? And
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So gratitude, the Hebrew that you used is the way that it's translated. Um, but literally, hakarat hatov means recognizing the good. So it's actually back to what is it, the optimism sentence,
Mhm.
always recognizing the good. This isn't particularly Jewish, but I was just reflecting that because I'm doing it, it's a Jewish thing. um, I myself, really in the last couple of weeks, have decided that what I will think about when I'm falling asleep are the five things that I'm grateful for.
Hmm.
And I'm 45 and have going to sleep has always been a tough time for me. So I'm a little bit, on one hand, I can get down on myself that it's taken this long to, and the other part of me is like, well, thank God it happened now. Um, but I will do a classic rabbi move, which is to answer a question with a question, which is, are there practices that you all do? Um, either around going to sleep or around gratitude. Um, what are the ways that you integrate it into your daily life? And it's a selfish question because now that I'm doing this, I want to do more.
That is a question for all of us. Go ahead and pipe in. How do you practice gratitude?
I know for a fact that Judy Halsett has one.
I know she does too. Oh, I bet she can't because she's on her phone.
Oh, that's right.
Oops,
Maybe we should let her speak.
I forgot about her. Oh, there you are.
Oh, there she is.
Wait, unmute.
Hold on, we're unmuting you, Judy.
No, she has to do it herself. I can only ask her.
Uh-oh. Oh, there
Now,
it is. You did
me?
it. Yeah.
Well, Rabbi, my practice of gratitude is that every morning I spend about 20 minutes writing in my gratitude journal. I am grateful for, and it is so easy to come up with all the good things that happened yesterday or that are happening in my life. And I say, I am grateful for, and that's how I live my life. I buy a gratitude journal through Amazon and it lasts 3 months. And I don't know that I'll ever go back and read what I've written, but I am also very careful not to say anything unkind about anyone in my journal. That is not a part of gratitude at all for me. And then on the other side of the page, my gratitude intentions. Today, I am grateful that I have time for practicing my singing for the concert for Sunday, things like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
I have a question. Since you brought up food and holidays, this may or may not be related to joy, but one of the first opportunities I had to celebrate with the family was on Rosh Hashanah. And they brought food and we ate outside, and I was told, and I can't tell you if they are, and some parts of that family are Orthodox, some are Reformed, so I don't know where this comes from. But there were certain prescribed foods that we enjoyed that were wonderful. But they said always it is a requirement that you have one food that you have never tried before or not for a very long time, and that you have it today, not tomorrow. And the holiday was presented sort of as a new year, new beginnings, wipe out the old and go with new intentions. And I thought I liked that so much better than our New Year's when we talk about what we're going to do tomorrow, next week, what, but this one you do it right now.
Right. Yes,
Can
that
you
is.
talk about that? Is that accurate?
Yes, that's actually, it's a great It's a great tradition. And so Rosh Hashanah is actually 2 days, which means that in our schema, it's actually spread out over 3 days, right? Because the holiday starts on the evening of one day and then goes through until the evening 2 days later. And on the second day is when you have a new food that you haven't ever had or haven't had in a year. That's the and so it's easier. I learned of this practice when I was living in New York. And it's easier when you have markets that have all kinds of, foods from all over the world that you've never tried. It's easier to find, excuse me, something that you've never had before. But you also could wear a new article of clothing like a new to you or new that you've never worn before.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Barb shared her gratitude practice in the chat. I just wanted to make sure you saw that. And earlier on in the conversation, she shared, when you were talking, she shared a lot about her Jewish connections. So make sure you check those out.
Thank you. Yeah, saying it out loud. That's great.
Same. Yeah.
Living a full and present life, I think that also inspires joy. Some time ago, I made the conscious decision that I sometimes stuck to and sometimes failed to live a life without regrets. So focus on not having regrets. And some days I'm better at it than not. But today, I am so grateful that I met Kathy. And that I regret nothing. Also, she's an inspiration to me because of this. About 4 years ago, I think it was, that she really wanted to buy a condo in Florida that was on the Gulf of Mexico. She had one, but that from that condo you couldn't see it was close to the Gulf, but she couldn't see it. And she decided that that's not her dream is to be in this particular condo. And she had to do some financial gymnastics to make it happen. And she just said, I'm just going to make it happen. And I'm so glad she did, because she enjoyed it and thoroughly enjoyed it for a few years, maybe 3 years, I think. And she lived with no regrets. And then I wish that for all of us, to live now and don't put it off, because no tomorrow is promised to any of us. So I am also reassessing my life and see what is it that I don't want to put off, because by golly, especially me, no tomorrow is promised. Live with no regrets, and then you know what? Pull in those people into the circle. And then when they pull you in, let yourself. It takes both to tango. Mm-hmm.
Well, I too am very grateful for having known Kathy. Mm-hmm. And if I may redirect it again, even though I'll be thinking about that for a long, long time, I was sort of looking for a little little program to tell me step by step how I could feel more joy. And I'm gathering movement, the dance, music, the song, gratitude are all things. But I'm wondering about a person who lives alone and who isn't very agile and doesn't have a singing voice. Besides gratitude, are there ways that the rabbi can suggest, and community was one of the other things I decided was part of what you were saying we could have for joy, and I'm wondering if that is accurate and if you have any added points for people in the situation I just described.
Right. Well, so a text that I found that I didn't read there's two that I didn't read that talk about daily actions that we do for other people. And so, these are that you honor your mother and father, you study, you clothe the naked, and feed the hungry and bury the dead. And I would add to that, writing postcards is also an act that I have been doing, get out the vote postcards or any sort of simple writing, reaching out, can absolutely be done from wherever you are. And I think both within Jewish tradition and in popular wisdom that I've been reading is when you feel overwhelmed, take one action. What is the one, and do it right now, right? That's also been a part of this conversation, right? So uh, that would be my thought. And I'm also wondering if there are, painting, sewing, uh, knitting, like those are things that we can do with our hands that don't require much.
Yeah, thank you.
And I will say here, I have right here a 22-year-old congregant who basically showed up on our doorstep 2 years ago and seems to me to come from pretty difficult circumstances. And she painted this for me, or she painted it, and then she gave it to me. And I said, where did this come from? Like, she left one other that, it's not signed, and it's a picture of the building, and it just showed up one day, and we were like, this should be on our website. Like, where is this? Oh, you can see Leo.
Uh-huh.
And what she does is every morning there's a painting prompt. And so she spends 20 minutes painting, and
Nice.
I don't know, she must have started with, some talent, but like, this is like the prompt was, Starry Night.
Yes, it's definitely Starry
Right,
Night.
right. And I think much like you build the muscle of gratitude, whatever art you're doing, you build that muscle, and then suddenly you're creating incredible things
that bring you joy.
right?
And other people joy too.
Right.
And again, it's a shared joy, which then just grows in everybody, multiplies, in everyone.
Well, I have found that in my meditations, you can sometimes remember a time when you were really happy, and you can get into that for a while, because it is astounding how we are programmed to remember the bad things faster than more often, or have them more recent in your memory, like having a wonderful trip like I just had, but having a lot of trouble with the planes coming home. And all of a sudden I'm thinking about how tired I am and how awkward that was, instead of all the wonderful week that I had before that. And to be able to reconstruct those happy times, I found I can do in a meditation that I can't just do by saying, oh, forget this, Beverly, and think about that, you know. So thank you. A lot of good ideas, a lot of things I've already thought a lot about. Some I've actually done something about, and some I haven't. But it was very, very worthwhile time.
Thank you. And I wrote down what you just said. Do a meditation where you remember a time when you were really happy and get back into that mindset. That is a gift to me.
Okay.
Anything else, my friends? I thank you all for your time. I thank you all for your heart, for your openness, your willingness. This is like, it's not like trying out a new food. This is like trying out a new thing. And I think it's important, and it keeps us well, open and alive to one another, and that inspires me and fulfills me and feeds me. Rabbi, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, your beautiful soul, your kindness, your deep thoughts, and for sharing them so willingly with us. And to all of you, I hope you enjoyed your evening with us.